So before we get started, I wanted to make sure that everyone has, a couple of good questions teed up. And I think it's probably, since it's just a couple of minutes after the hour, the right time to get going. So let's get going. My name is Mike Wilson. I am the Executive Director of AIA East Bay. And tonight joining us for a day in the life of an architect, sponsored by AIA East Bay, is Ashley Rybarczyk. Ashley, I will let her introduce herself about, exactly what she does and everything. But the ground rules for tonight are, it's open-ended. The goal here in the next half hour is to have students and other people who've joined us tonight ask questions and just kind of get a sense of what it's like to work as an architect, what a day in the life of the architect is. And we will have questions from the audience. We'll start with a short introduction from Ashley, giving us her little background, and then we'll jump right into the Q&A part of the evening. So without further ado, Ashley.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining this evening. My name's Ashley, as Mike has said. Just to start out, I grew up in Wisconsin in a tiny little town, about 500 people. And then I went to school at University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, which we have some slides of. It's a pretty cool building. It was designed by SOM out of Chicago. It used to be in this really old, decrepit building, but I was fortunate enough to be a class that got into the new one. So I got to enjoy that. Mike, do you want to put the slides up real quick just so we can see full screen?
Hold on a second. For some reason, I see what's going on here. Sometimes you have technical difficulties with these things.
Yeah, happens.
How's that?
There we go. There's just a few images of School of Architecture and Urban Planning. I liked that building. It was pretty neat, except they had all north-facing glass windows, so it was quite cold in the winter. As you can imagine, Milwaukee is freezing. You can go on to the next one, Mike. This is my workspace currently. I'm sitting there right now. I cleaned it up for y'all to see. It's not usually this clean. But yeah, every morning now it's just roll out of bed. I try to put pants on, like real pants, but usually don't. And then have my coffee and just get to work right at home in my living room.
So Ashley, what's the difference between how you're working now and how you normally work?
Normally, I would wake up a lot earlier and then just take a lift to work. I work in Oakland for KTGY Architects. So it's only about a 10-minute lift drive, just straight down the road here. And then I grab a coffee at the coffee shop in our building and then go up to the 4th floor where I work. And that's actually the image behind me right now. If you can see, that's an image of our lobby of our office. The building's locked down, so we haven't been in the office since March 19th, I think. Can't remember the exact date. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so back to the slides.
In the meantime, could I get Camilla and Aleli Ramos to put their cameras on? We are trying to keep, we want to see everybody in the room if at all possible.
Right. So just a couple projects I've been working on the last 3 or 4 years. This is Theory at Innovation down in Fremont. It's right adjacent to the Tesla factory. There's a huge master plan going on in Fremont, and I'm privileged enough to work on a lot of the residential projects out there. So this is a stacked flats project. The floor plans stack on top of themselves, and it's all for sale. It's for sale residential condos. This is really interesting working with the city because they have reach codes for energy. So we installed solar on the roofs, even though it wasn't required by code yet. So we went above and beyond for energy. The next slide. And then this is actually also in the same master plan, but kitty corner, and it's by a different developer, by Toll Brothers. Also a stacked flats, but this one has retail components because it's on a very prominent intersection that goes through the development. This one, we haven't started construction yet. For this portion of the project, it's still in plan check. So hopefully we'll get permit in the next couple months and then we'll start construction this summer.
So Ashley, what did you especially like about this previous, oopsie, I've got to, where am I going here? Previous. My little buttons are gone.
Oh, no.
What did you like particularly about this project?
Oh, this one, I think aesthetic wise, I think the materiality, I worked with longboard, which is like a metal cladding that looks like wood. It's out of Canada. The installation was a little weird, so I learned a lot about construction sequencing specifically. I learned a lot about OSHA as well, because there's a lot of rules once you get to a 4-story building or a 60-foot tall building. OSHA comes into play with safety, with equipment on the roof and how a building is maintained. So it was a great learning experience. So that's why it's probably my favorite. I think I learned the most on this one.
So I'd like to open it up to questions. Any of our...
Oh, not yet. I saw the video.
Oh, she's got a video.
I have a little video about it just encapsulates what it's like to be an architect every day, and you might get the gist of it.
Yeah, so I asked her, do you have a way of really telling people what it's like? And she sent me this.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning, right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, you know?
You see the movies, you hear the stories, I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do.
I wouldn't do nothing else.
It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
EDS, manage.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so that is basically what an architect does every day. So yeah, now I guess it's open for question and answer.
No, Pong has a question he put into the chat. I'm wondering if Pong, if you turn your mic on, you can just go ahead and ask it.
Sure. I was wondering, for residential architecture, do you typically design plans individually for each project? There's a different plan, or do you have like a set of plans to select from in your work?
I think every project's a little bit different. Sometimes we will have developers request that we base a new project off of an existing one, but most of the time it ends up changing anyway. Starting from scratch is pretty rare, just because the company I work for has been doing residential for older than I am. So they have a big repertoire of projects to base new things off of, but that doesn't mean we don't come up with new things. So it just depends on what the client wants to do.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
You have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Go ahead. Hi, Lee.
Thanks, Ashley, for the presentation. The video was definitely super funny. True. I moved to the US 2.5 years ago, and I started working in an architectural firm. I was studying in Latin America and then moved to Taiwan and then moved here. So when I moved here, I found out a challenge. I found super challenging to find confidence in the work environment. At first, I thought it was the language, but then I realized it was more related to lack of knowledge, experience, and at the end, it's like the thought was evolving, right? And at the end, kind of realized it was more the way I adapt to environment, but I'm not sure. I would like to know more like about your experience. How do you find confidence?
This is a really good question. Didn't expect it so deep. The second question, and I think what I've learned so far is not to be afraid of something new. For instance, like I wasn't too fond of drawing details because I didn't know anything about it, but it just takes practice, it takes time. Nobody's going to expect you to know everything right out the gate. That's why it's called the practice of architecture. I think, a lot of people think like once you become an architect, you just know everything, and that's not the case. It's really, that's the start of your career, is when you get your license. And knowing what you don't know, I think is key as well. And not being afraid to ask questions when you don't know. And don't be afraid of the answer. Just take what you can, take everything slowly. Just keep asking questions. And the confidence will come over time. And I know I was scared to do anything on my own in the first 5-6 years of working, but after a while, you feel more confident and comfortable.
All right, thank you.
Eunice, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was, because I'm currently still a student, I was wondering, going from student and going out to the real world and working in a firm, was there a big gap? Like, was there a lot of difference in terms, I guess, like, in terms of designing?
I think the biggest difference is working with groups and being more collaborative with a lot of different types of professionals. It's something you don't get exposed to that much in school. It's usually you're working in a bubble, and rarely do you get to work on team projects, in my experience anyway. So just learning how to communicate with people in different fields like structural engineers and civil engineers, and how to collaborate and learning your role on the team. I think that's the biggest gap that probably might take most amount of time, and I'm still trying to figure out sometimes what I'm supposed to be doing and like what my role is. But yeah, that's something that you just don't get exposed to in school.
Great. I think Rudy has a question. Rudy?
Yeah. Hi, Ashley. I am wondering what you think the implications of COVID will be after vaccine and after life kind of goes back more to normal. I was talking with some of my professors that work at firms, and they were saying that they think they will likely go to at-home work still a couple days a week. And if you think that'll change any of the projects that you work on, and the work feel, especially. So I'm a senior, undergraduate senior, and I'm kind of, I guess, a little nervous about hoping that I can go in and be taught more in person, as somebody coming into a firm that's new.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what do I think is going to happen? What I want to happen, or what I think is going to happen? So that's above my pay grade, but I really do think that it's going to impact how we work. I think that we're going to find efficiencies in how we do meetings, especially now that we've been virtual for so long. I think that firms may adopt that mentality. For instance, instead of driving 2 hours to have a 30-minute meeting, we most likely will just now use technology and Zoom like we've been doing. The thing that's lacking in this experience is the face-to-face, and the team collaboration is a lot different. Instead of just being able to turn around and talk to your group, you have to coordinate time, or make sure that people are on board, and communication is a little bit tougher that way. But I do think that there will be a slow back to normal, but adopting the good things that we learned from this experience being under lockdown. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ashley, I wonder if that presents itself as a competitive advantage for students just entering the profession, since they don't have any set way of working, and this new way of working. Do you think that might actually end up being something that could benefit students just entering the profession?
Well, absolutely. If you've been going to school this way, I think that going into the profession, knowing how to utilize technology, I think it's going to benefit greatly. And especially if you bring something to a firm that they don't know about yet. We're always interested in learning what students are doing and the technology that they're utilizing, and see if it has a benefit to us.
Fantastic. I've got a question from Camilla. Camilla?
Oh, Camilla.
Hi. Hi, Ashley. How are you?
What are you doing here? No, I'm just kidding. Hi.
I'm here to support you guys. I do have some
you.
questions, though. I mean, now with COVID and everything, 2 parts. What's your favorite part of the day now that things have kind of changed? And the second part is, what's your approach to mentoring someone who's just out of school?
Okay, part 1. Can you do the part 1 again? I'm sorry.
What's your favorite part of the day now post-COVID?
My favorite part of the day is being able to save a lot of money by not buying all the expensive coffee. And then just making my own coffee and taking my time in the morning to myself. Just being able to just take a step back into a comfortable environment if things are too stressful. I think that's a big advantage. Second part, how to mentor out of school. I think it depends on the individual. I've been able to mentor a few people at KTGY that were out of school, and I think it's just finding the way that each new incoming person works, and finding their work ethic and communication style. That's one of the biggest challenges to being a mentor, but just understanding that there's a different generation coming in and being open-minded.
Thanks, Camilla. Hexon has a question. Hexon?
Yes. So since I am a student, I'm wondering how and when can one apply for an internship in architecture?
How and when? I believe summer internships are the most popular. And I also think it depends what school you go to, but there's usually career fairs that pop up that present opportunities. So getting a resume together, getting a portfolio together ahead of time is definitely an advantage. And then just looking out for things online, right? Postings online for internships from different companies. I know AIA East Bay, we have a portal where you can look for those types of things. And then just, yeah, like I said, your career fairs at your schools are usually good resources.
So I've been taking architecture for almost 4 years now at Chabot. And I'm wondering, when is the time that I can apply for an internship?
You could do that right now. If you find something, I'd say go for it. Yeah, I don't think
can be
there's
any
a time
time.
limit. Yes, I think, people are open-minded, and if you find an opportunity, take it.
Okay, thank you.
May I comment also?
Oh, sure.
Also, don't be shy. I don't know if you're in college or in high school, but I did internships while I was in college too. Sometimes through your school, you can connect with a professor and do internships while you're still in school.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Camilla.
Yeah, Rudy has another question. Rudy?
Hello again. I'm wondering, as like a student that's hopefully going to enter the field pretty soon, kind of some things that you look for in undergraduate applications, since we don't have the same level of experience as somebody that might be graduating from grad school or already has 2 or 3 years in the field.
We look for a variety of things. Portfolio is big. We look for technical skills, so things like proficiency in SketchUp, Revit, AutoCAD, Photoshop. So those types of programs are really important to a lot of firms. I know a lot of firms use different programs, but for the most part, those are the top 4 that are pretty consistent from what I've seen. Other than that, that's really the big picture items I would say that you would want to highlight when you're going after a job.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ashley, tell us about your first job, how you found it, what it was like.
Oh, my first job? Okay, so I graduated in 2007 with my undergrad degree, and I found a job in Dallas, and I actually moved from Milwaukee to Dallas and worked at a firm called Boca Powell. We did high-rise mostly, and a lot of offices and condos, high-rise condos. It was kind of like a shotgun thing where I just sent out hundreds of applications, the last couple months of my senior year, and I picked one and went for it. I wanted to see a different city anyway, so I just picked that one. Then the recession hit, and I went back to grad school in 2009. So the Dallas stint didn't last very long. But then after that, I thought that maybe after grad school, the job market would come back, and it hadn't yet. So I was actually working at hospitals and working in retail, and I actually learned a lot about architecture working in different fields. And then I decided to do another shotgun attempt, and I landed a job here at MBH in Alameda. Then I moved on to KTGY about 1.5 years after. I don't know if that answers your question, Mike. But yeah, it was more like just shotgun to whatever you think is a good place to work, whatever sparks your interest.
What do you think about the trying to target firms? So the expectation right now is that the job market's going to be pretty tough for young and emerging architects. What would you say to our audience tonight in regard to what they might do to stand out or give themselves some sort of an edge in getting those positions, whether it's internships or actually getting hired at a firm?
I think I'm trying to put myself into the student mind again. It's hard. Find what values you have and what kind of architecture you want to do, and try to target firms that align with those values that you have. Some people don't want to work at a large firm. Some people don't want to work at a small firm. I think just finding something that fits you and your architectural values and your values as a person is key. Does that help?
It certainly does. We have a question from Eunice. Eunice?
Okay.
Yeah, I have like a 2-part question. So what do you like the most during your career as an architect? And also, like, what do you find the most challenging?
Well, what I like the most, I love working with people and just meeting new people and constantly learning. Every day I learn something new, and I think that's the most fulfilling thing. Aside from seeing your drawing become reality, that's the second most fulfilling thing for me. But I just like learning. I'm constantly trying to find new and better ways to do my job. And so, second part, what's the most challenging? People. I think it's the same answer. People, problem solving, you know, communicating these days, I think, is a little bit more challenging. Just trying to get your ideas out there in an appropriate way where people understand. It's a big learning curve.
What do you wish that you showed up that, the first day or first couple of months when you started your career with a skill that you have figured out you had to learn later, but you'd wished you'd known on day one?
Revit. I wish I learned Revit, and I wish I learned AutoCAD a little bit better. I didn't take AutoCAD. I took some other program they don't even have anymore. I don't even remember what it's called. I think younger me thought that I would know everything coming out of school, and I didn't. And that was a huge shock. Just realizing that there is so much more than just designing pretty things. It's a lot more than that, right? It's teamwork and coordination, and like I said, constant learning.
Excellent. Pong has another question. Pong?
Yes. I was wondering, I think most of the people in this room are like architecture, like professionals or students, but I was wondering for students currently not in architecture, not an architecture major, but want to pursue architecture both in grad school, but also as a career. If there is any like easy way to merge into architecture from engineering.
Is there an easy way to merge in the architecture? I think just be a sponge. Just be a sponge, okay? Like, don't just make a rectangle, because I know engineers like to do rectangles, right? We like everything to be rectangles, but merge, break the mold, think outside the box, dive into your creative side, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. Go ahead.
What's Pong?
Pong, we didn't hear your question.
Oh, okay.
I think
I was wondering. So in terms of preparing for a career in architecture, besides having a Master of Architecture's degree, is there any other ways that perhaps I could get involved into architecture at an earlier stage? Perhaps maybe volunteering or interning at AIA East Bay, or is there any other opportunities?
First thing that pops to mind is Habitat for Humanity.
I was just gonna say that.
Right, because you can learn about construction and be hands-on with it, and I think that you're going to get a lot more experience from that. Yeah, volunteering.
Plus teamwork. That's
a lot of teamwork. Yep, it's a lot of teamwork involved, and it's philanthropy, so you feel good. Yeah, just join AIA East Bay as an associate and try joining some emerging professional or young architects forums just to be in the conversation. You're going to learn a lot and meet a lot of people that way, and I think that's very beneficial.
Excellent. Pitch the organization. Go AIA.
Yeah, hit my quota this month. No, I'm just kidding.
I do want to point out one other thing. What Pong was just demonstrating was he seems somewhat fearless. He's sort of like, I'm going to ask a question, and built into that question is kind of asking for a job. The key to winning an interview is asking for the job. You can say how great you are and all this other stuff, but you really do need to complete it with, and I really want to work here because da-da-da-da, and if you give me the position, da-da-da-da. So, hats off to Pong. That's a perfect example of what we're trying to do here. Last question of the night. Aleli?
Yeah, that's correct, Aleli.
Aleli.
You are one of the few people who can pronounce it pretty well, my name. Actually, I would like to ask you two questions, actually.
Okay.
First one, how your goals have been evolving since you graduate until now? Like, what are your projections in the future? And the second one, because you moved, right? You were living in a different state and then you moved here. How did you manage to find your tribe, to feel more involved in the field, find your people?
To find my people. Okay, I'm gonna do the first one first. Goals evolving. So right out of school, right, first job. First goal was to get my license. So getting into, you know, the I don't know what they call it now, the AXP program, and just doing all the exams. That was my goal. And after that was done, I did have a year where I was like, well, now what? Because that has been my goal for like 5 years, you know, after school. It was like 4 or 5 years. And then I did have like kind of a lull in goal setting. But now it's more about volunteering. It's more about helping others and mentoring and teaching. I'm really into helping younger architects learn things, like learn from my mistakes, essentially. So yeah, my goals have shifted from being more self-centered to more about other people and facilitating their growth. Second one, what was my drive? At first, it was being competitive with people I was working with. I think that might have been the firm culture promoted that, the firms I was at before. And that just trying to be better than the person next to me. And I think that's a really stupid way to approach it. Now looking back, I think it's a little naive, where I could have approached it differently and learned to work as a team better. And now my drive is just to try to make things better every day. And like I said, just keep learning. I just love seeing people I've worked with as their mentor. I love seeing them grow. And I think that's my drive now, is to see other people excel.
Excellent. Well, I want to wrap it up. We're out of time. This has been a great question answer. Thank you to everybody who came tonight. You were really, really generous with your questions. Thank you to Ashley for sharing your insights with us. It's been, I think, very informative. If any of you after this event want to reach out to Ashley, I'll share her information with you all. We have one final question. Looks like a hand went up. Alali?
Oh no, that I would like her contact. Okay.
Yes, sign me up for contact. Yes, so we're gonna we'll take care of that. But once again, I wanted to say thanks to Ashley, and I want to wish all of you a good night, and thank you for participating in A Day in the Life. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.